So when you say urban education crisis, what does that look like in real terms for youth or Black youth today? And what are the three most vital disparities that you see?
That's a good question. So, when you say urban, what comes to mind when you think of urban?
I think that's great for you to define because I think multiple people think different things. I think the masses think Black automatically when you hear urban. When I hear urban, I hear not rural. In my mind, I think it's the people who live in the city is more populated
Mhm.
and is more culturally diverse. That's what comes to mind for me personally. But what does it mean
Right.
for you?
So when we think about urban, there's three types of urban. There's urban intensive, urban like a middle level urban. So and then you have like urban characteristics. So when we think about those urban intensive areas, those are those 1 million plus cities. Those are those 1 million plus population areas.
Intensive
Urban intensive.
based on population.
Yeah, so you have urban intensive, urban emergent, which is sort of like the middle level cities or the middle level type of urban, and then you have those urban characteristics. So those are going to be those small towns that still have that urban feel. So even though a lot of people hear the word urban education or urban education, what they're gonna think of is LA, New York, Chicago. But those are the only type of urban environments that are seeing the high rates of poverty, the high rates of crime, the high rates of homelessness, the disenfranchisement of students. This is all also happening in those middle level urban cities. So you think of something like a New Orleans, you think of something like a Grand Rapids, Michigan, you think of something like a Gary, Indiana. Even though they don't have 1 million people in their population, they're still experiencing some of those um, deficiencies that you're going to see in those urban intensive cities like the New Yorks and the Chicago's. And then you have those smaller towns like Little Rock, Arkansas. Some people would even say like a area like Gaston County, Gastonia. They don't have a large population, but you're going to see the difference in franchisement of people. You're going to see the poverty. You're going to see the attacks on affordable housing. Um,
Where's Charlotte fall?
Charlotte falls in urban intensive because there's over 1 million people in their population.
Really?
Yeah, so they're going to be, so they're one of the ones that over the years recently has grown to an urban intensive setting because they're over 1 million. So they're up
Okay.
there with the LAs and the Chicago's and the Philadelphias. They're making it so. But then you have those other mid range, and we're out. Charlotte's out of that category, and so now you just have those areas like the Gary, Indiana. So you're going to see those. And so it's systemic. And so when I think about some of the disparities that exist in these, what we call these disparities in these urban communities, I'm thinking of the lack of quality teachers. I'm thinking of the lack of STEM educators, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics educators. I'm thinking of the lack of mental health professionals for these students that might be experiencing things. And those mental health issues trickle down to them academically. And so you're going to see those students maybe not perform so well when it comes to their academics. And so those disparities are traveling down. So from the lack of qualified teachers, that would be one disparity. When you look at a school in one zip code, like a 28206, which is one of the lowest income in Charlotte, and you look at one of the more affluent communities like a Myers Park, the quality teachers that they have is going to cause those disparities. And when we have lack of quality teachers, then we're going to see those results academically. And one of the things you can look at is the scores. We have something called the Nation's Report Card. And so if you look at the scores of the Nation Report Card, they look at students all across the country and they measure their reading and they measure their math scores. And one thing you will find is that Black girls and Black boys, according to their peers, are underperforming in math and in reading more more so than their white and Asian peers. And so we're seeing these disparities come through in the testing. And so it's something to be alarmed about, something to raise a red flag about.